Hello, Math Stars. Today's lesson is going to be on long division. There are 9 pages in our packet that have to do with long division, so I'm going to work right from our packet today and no extra pages. Before we get started, we're going to start on page 7, but before so, I want us to go over a note page on the parts of division problem and the steps to long division. You might want to pause the video and copy this information down or screenshot it so you can look back to it when you're working on these pages. So the 3 parts of a division problem, we have the divisor, which is the groups you're making. This is the number that is needed to make an equal group of something. 847 is our dividend. This is the total amount. It goes inside our division bracket. This is the total of whatever it is that we are splitting up. And then our quotient is the answer, and that means how many equal groups you can make. Okay, and that's important. The quotient means how many equal groups you can make, but if you have a remainder, that means you have some things that are left over. It will not fit in an equal group. So I will use divisor, the group, how many make up a complete group, dividend, your total amount, and quotient, your answer, how many equal groups you can make when explaining, walking through the problems. Okay. Long division is a 5 steps repeated over and over again. Some problems will be divided equally, and other problems you'll be left with a remainder. Remember, remainder means does not, and it says it right here, does not fit equally in a group. That is what a remainder is. Okay. The 5 steps to division, we like to remember it as saying dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat. I'll often have the students write next to all the problems, dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. Okay. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Okay. Writing that next to long division problems will help you to make sure you follow the steps each time. Okay. When we have 2 numbers, sometimes that means you go through all of these steps twice. If you have a large divisor, you might go through the steps just once. It just depends on each problem. But these are the 5 steps. Okay, so now let's work from page 7. I am going to zoom in a little here so you can see the problems more clearly. Okay, so we're going to start off really small, just to remind yourselves of the steps. And if you've never learned the steps or have never felt comfortable with the steps, now you can. Okay, so next to the problem, write your steps. Write your think track. Dad, mom, sister, brother, and rover. Remind yourself. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Okay? So divide means, can your divisor, and we only look at one problem at a time. I often use a Post-it note. Let me grab my Post-its. I often use a Post-it note to just block 1 digit off at a time. Okay, for the students, especially in larger problems. So divide. Can 2 go into a 1? No, it can't. It's important to use that placeholder because when we get to longer division problems, if you don't put your numbers in the right place, they all kind of get smushed and you end up having wrong answers. Okay, we only have 2 digits, so I don't have to move it over anymore. Okay, so 2 doesn't go into 1, so this now becomes my whole dividend. 2 goes into 19. Well, how many times? 2 times what gets us close to 19? 2 times 9. Okay, so we just divided 2 into 19 and got a 9. That was our division step. Now we multiply. 9, sometimes for some students I put a little multiplication symbol there. 9 times 2 is 18. We just multiplied. Now we subtract. Take 18 away, and we have a remainder of 1. Okay? There are no other numbers. When there are no other numbers, you don't have to bring down. Okay, if you can't bring a number down, then your problem ends. Okay, and we have a remainder. Okay, tell yourself what this means. The quotient of 9 means I can make 9 equal groups of 2, and I will have 1 of something left over. Okay, go on to 2. Okay, again, if you need to kind of remind yourself, use a Post-it to ask yourself that first question. Okay, I can still see my think track, so I'm not going to rewrite it over here. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Can 4 go into 2? No. The inside number has to be larger in order for the divisor to go into it. Okay, so then I have to look at my next number, and it becomes a 27. That's my dividend now, my total amount. Can 4 go into 27? Yes. How many times can 4 go into 27? 6 times. Okay. So I just asked myself in my head, 4 times what gets me close to 27? And that is 6. Okay. 6 times 4 is 24. I just multiplied that. Okay. Now it's time for me to subtract it. 24. And I get a 3. Okay. I don't need to bring down because there are no other digits there. There's no other digits to bring down, so my problem ends. I can make 6 equal groups of 4, but I'm going to have 3 left over. You can even make this into a story to help you understand it. I have 27 cookies, and I put 4 cookies in a baggie. How many baggies can I make? I can make 6 equal baggies, but I'm going to have 3 cookies left over. They will not fit in a group. Okay, it's important for you to understand what that remainder means. Okay, I'm going to do 2 more problems from this page, and then I will show you the answer key, and we'll move on to a more difficult page. Okay, so again, only look at one number at a time, and I have the 4. Can 5 go into 4? Oop, I can't see my think track. It's off the page, so I'm going to write it up here. Dad, Mom, Sister, Brother, Rover. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Always keep that visible when you are dividing. Okay, so we just decided that 5 cannot go into 4, so I'm going to use my placeholder. So now my new dividend is 44. How many times can 5 go into 44 without going over? Well, I know that 8 times 5 is 40. Okay, so I divided by saying 8, and now I'm going to multiply. 8 times 5 is 40, and now I'm on to sister. I'm going to subtract. And I have a leftover of 4. I have no other numbers to bring down, so therefore I can't bring down anything. So if I have 44 cookies, and I want to put them in packages of 5, my quotient tells me I can make 8 equal packs of 5, and I'm going to have 4 cookies left over. Okay. Number 4. Again, we only look at one number at a time to start with. I look at the 1. Okay. Can 3 go into 1? No. So now I have to look at the whole number, 17. How many times can 3 go into 17 without going over? And I know 5 times 3 is 15. So not only did I divide, 3 goes into 17 5 times, but then I multiplied. 5 times 3 is 15. So now I'm going to subtract. And I come up with a 2. This shows me that I can make 5 equal groups of 3, and I will have 2 left over. Okay, tell yourself a story. What do you have 17 of? How do you have to group it? How many equal groups can you make? And how many of whatever it is will you have left over? Okay, so this is page 7 from your booklet. I'm going to show you the completed answer. Okay, so actually I should say, you could pause the video now if you want to work on the rest of the page. And then when you're ready to check your answer, you can come back to the video. Okay, so now I want to move on to most of the pages. Page 8 is very similar. 9 is very similar. 10 is very similar. We have a lot of, let's do from page 10. Yeah, we're going to do a couple problems from page 10 since our divisor gets a little bit bigger. Okay, so let me get page 10 here. Because this will mean the first page we did, page 7, only required you to go through the 5 steps once. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see a little closer. But this one, we're going to go through the steps twice. Okay, the exact same steps apply. We have dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. Okay, remind yourself, division, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Okay, you ask yourself one number at a time. Can 3 go into 4? This time it does. So that's our dividend to start with. 3 goes into 4 one time. Okay, so that's divide. 3 goes into 4 one time. I multiply. 1 times 3 is 3, and that is what I subtract. And I get a 1. Okay, now I can bring down. I have more digits in my dividend, so I can bring down. I bring down just the very next. It's a 3, and now I make this a 13. That's my new dividend, my new total amount I'm dealing with. Okay, so now 3 goes into 13 how many times? Okay, so I know that I'm going to get close to it with a 4. Notice how I got to move that over just a little bit. I try to keep all my numbers lined up, so this 4 should be above this 3 as carefully as you can. So I divided 3 into 13 is 4. Okay, now I'm going to multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. That is what I subtract, and I get a 1. Okay, I still have a digit to deal with, so I go through the steps again. I can go down to bring down. So the 8 comes straight down. Now that is my new dividend, my new total amount. Now I divide. 3 goes into 18. Think to yourself, 3 times what gets me close to 18? If you were to skip count by 3, how many times would I have to skip count to get to 18? Let's see. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So I'm going to have 6. Okay, I'm going to multiply. 6 times 3 is 18. And that is what I subtract. And I get a 0. Okay. I have nothing left over. And I have no other problem, no other numbers. Therefore, my problem is done. I can make 146 equal groups of 3 if given 438. Okay, if it's easier, put it into a story. I have 438 cookies. I put them in bags of 3 for our class party. I can make 146 equal baggies of cookies. Okay. So this problem, the first page 7, we only went through the division steps once. Here, we went through the division steps 3 total times. First time, second time, third time. Okay? Let's do one more problem from this page, and then I'll show you the answer. Okay? So we have 2 into 696. Okay? So again, start one digit at a time. Use a Post-it if you need to, or an index card, and just move it over just to remind you. You're only looking at one digit at a time. Okay? If these problems are too small, then take a piece of line paper and recopy the problem. Okay? So you ask yourself, I can still see my think track, so I don't need to rewrite it yet. Can 2 go into 6? Yes, 6 is bigger, so I know it can go inside of it. Okay? So how many times can 2 go into 6 without going over? And it is 3 times. Okay? So I divided. Now I'm going to multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay? That's what I multiplied as. Now I'm going to subtract. 6 takes away 6 is 0. Okay? I still have 2 digits. I only use one at a time. I have to look at the 9. I'm going to bring it straight down. Make a 9. I like to circle it. That reminds me that's my new dividend. If you get distracted and you look away, when you come back to your paper, you know that this is the step you're on. Okay, so now you repeat Rover, repeat all the steps, go back to the top. Division. How many times can 2 go into 9 without going over? And it can go in 4 times. Carefully write that 4 above the 9. Now multiply. 4 times 2 is 8. That is what I'm going to subtract. 9 take away 8 is 1. Is there a number to bring down? Yes, there is. There's a 6. I bring it down. I circle it. This is my new dividend, my new total amount. And repeat right here. Start and go back to the top. Can 2 go into 16? Yes. How many times? Ask yourself, 2 times what is 16? And I can come up with an 8. Now I multiply. 8 times 2 is 16. It's a 0. I have nothing else to bring down. I have no remainder. There's nothing to repeat. So my answer is 348. Always circle your answers, no matter what page in the booklet you're on. After you show your work, always circle your answer. It helps the teacher or whoever's correcting your work to zero right in on your answer. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my think track. Dad, mom, sister, brother, Rover. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Okay? Now, I'm going to just do the steps, and I want you to narrate out loud what I'm doing. Try to use that math language that I've probably showed you maybe 7 problems now. See if you can narrate what I'm doing. Okay, I hope you were able to use some good math vocabulary to narrate the steps that I was following. I can make 231 equal groups of 4 and have 1 left over. Okay, you can pause the video to work on the rest of the problems. And then I'm going to put the answer page on the video. So you can pause it, and then when you're ready, you can correct your own work. Now, I just want to move on just maybe a couple more problems from page 21. So you can skip ahead to page 21 in your packet, okay, where I want to talk to you about two-digit divisors, and then this is the last part of this video. Okay, two-digit divisors can get a little bit more trickier. They involve just kind of, sometimes you have to do a little bit of estimating, a little bit of rounding, okay? So we're on page 21. I'll write it right here. Page 21. Okay. Rewrite your think tracks, which are dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Okay. So now you still look in the dividend, the total amount, one problem at a time. Or one digit at a time. Okay, but now we have a bigger divisor. We're making groups of 16. Can 16 fit inside of 6? No. Use a placeholder. Then I look over and I look at my next digit. It's a 68. Can 16 go inside of 68? Yes, it can. So that, you have to think to yourself, 16 times what gets me close to 68? This is where, when you have double-digit divisors, you have to do a lot of side problems, okay? You can do a side problem and take a guess. Well, I'm going to say, okay, well, 16 times 3. Let me see if that's going to get me close to 68. So this is a side problem. It just helps me to figure out what is my correct quotient. So 6 times 3 is 18. That 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Okay. 16 times 3 is 48. I have 68. So that's way too low. 3 cannot be my quotient. So let me try 16 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry my 2, 4, 5, 6, 64. Yes, that's very close to 68 without going over. So I put the 4 above the 8. Okay, that's why I needed my placeholder. If I didn't have that placeholder, you're probably going to write the 4 above the 6, and it's just going to lead to incorrect answer. Okay, so now I have to multiply. I divided, now I multiply, which I already did over here, so I know. 4 times 16 is 64. Now I have to subtract. I have a 4. Now I can bring down. I have a digit, so I'm going to bring it down, and it is an 8. Repeat all my steps again. Okay. Well, luckily I did some side problems because I've actually answered the next step. My new dividend is 48. How many times can 16 go into 48 without going over? Well, I already did my side problem to figure out that it is 3. I multiply. 3 times 16 is 48. I subtract, and I get a 0. So I can make, if I'm given 688 cookies, I can make baggies of 16, and I can make 43 baggies. Okay, so a second strategy I want to show you. Okay, so you can do a guess and check and just do side problems. And sometimes you're going to use a mix of both of these. The next one I want to think of is estimating. Okay, but if we first start off exactly the same way, can 32 go into 1? No, it cannot. Remember, your dividend has to be bigger than your divisor, so I move it over. So this could be my new dividend, my total amount. Can 32 go inside of 17? No, it cannot. So this is the first time I needed to use 2 placeholders. Okay, now I move over. Now I have 179. Every time I can't use a number or a number's not big enough, I have to go to the next number and combine it. So now I have 179. Can 32, how many times can 32 go inside of 179? Now, we can use estimation. Let's estimate 32 to a 30. Okay, let's estimate 179. What's the closest 100? 200, right? So if we estimate that to 200, I can cross off the same amount of zeros on both sides. How many 3s can go into 20 without going over? Okay, we can say 6. Okay, so let's see if 6 is going to work. We used an estimate. Let's try it out. Okay, so what is 6 times 32? Let's do a side problem. 32 times 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. Well, that's 192. I'm way over 179. So what does that tell me? My estimate was over, but I got pretty close. But 6 is going to be too high of a quotient. So I'm going to automatically drop down to 5. Let's see if that works. I'm going to do a side problem. 32 times 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry my 1. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 is 16. 160. Perfect. That will do. Okay. I'm going to erase these marks just to clear our thinking a little bit. So now I have to subtract. I still have my think tracks over here. And when I subtract, I get 19. Okay. If your subtraction ever makes it, if your remainder is larger than your divisor, then that means your quotient's too small. You have to go up one more. But we're good right here. So now I have to bring down. I have an 8, I can bring it down. Okay, that's my new total amount. Well, again, I actually answered this for myself. My first side problem, I was checking if what 32 times 6 is, and it got me to 192. That actually is going to work right here. 32 can go into 198 6 times. 6 times 32, okay, I'm going to multiply, is 192. And now I'm going to subtract. There you go. I'm going to have remainder 6. Okay, so new things that were brought into this problem is that I had to use 2 placeholders. I had to move over 2 times and use the third digit, 179. Okay, and I had 2-digit divisor, so I either had to estimate to figure out what my quotient was, or I had to do some side problems. Okay, I'm going to work through this problem, and again, I want to give you the opportunity. I'm going to make this a little smaller and get it out of our way. I want to give you the opportunity to talk through what the steps of the problem are. Okay, you narrate what I am doing. Let's see. Can't see my side problem. Okay, so that was definitely a longer problem. I had to guess a little bit more. This was a larger number, 209. Okay, normally I don't do all my side work right where all the other problems are. I would have scrap paper with me, but for the sake of the video, I just used the space that was available to me. But normally you would use the sides and you would use scrap paper. Okay, so that is my answer. So I'm going to show you the answer key to page 21. So if you want to work out the rest of your problems first, pause the video. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. And I will show you the answers. These are the answers for page 21. Okay, and that pretty much sums up 2-digit division, long division.